Hi there, and welcome to our devotion for this week, a Bible journey that we are taking, and it is on our own Route 66 with a devotion from each of the 66 books of the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. If you haven't seen some of the previous ones, they're all archived and you can go back and have a look at them. But today we're arriving at our 17th stop in the Bible, and that is the book of Esther. And I want to refer in a moment to Esther chapter 4 and verse 14. But let's start by looking at the backstory. What had happened was, after the end of the Babylonian exile period, when the Babylonians were defeated by the Persians, a king came to power eventually by the name of Xerxes. If you use the old King James Version, there he is given the almost unpronounceable name of Ahasuerus. But anyway, he was ruling in Persia. A number of the Jewish people had not gone back to Israel and were still living under his rule in Persia and in Babylon, in that part of the world. And what happened on one particular day was that his queen decided that she was no longer going to listen to him, either as her husband or as her king. Now, in those days, that might have sounded like good feminism, but it didn't work. And because he was the absolute ruler of everything, he was advised by his team of obviously male advisors that he should get rid of her and replace her, which he did. And he set up what we have in the Bible as the only beauty contest, where he invited women throughout the empire to come and appear before him so that he could choose a new queen. And Esther was a very beautiful Jewess, and without divulging that she was a Jewess, she was persuaded to go and join this beauty contest, which apparently she won hands down. He was totally enamored by her. He thought she was beautiful. She was a very smart lady, and so he admired everything about her and immediately made her his queen, without ever actually knowing about her background, the fact that she was actually one of the refugees, at least her ancestors, had come from the land of Israel. However, there were people who didn't like that idea. As you can imagine, there was a lot of jealousy, and one particular man by the name of Haman decided that he was going to put a stop to this one way or the other. So he very sneakily went to the king and suggested that these Jews that were still here as exiles in the empire of Persia, as it now was, were actually bad news. They were working against him as the king, and the very best thing he could do was to issue a decree that they should all be destroyed, as we read in Esther chapter 3, verse 9. Now, we find that hard to put our heads around that these days, but in those days the absolute power that the emperors had was frightening, and so he simply decreed that this should happen throughout his empire. Obviously, the Jews were devastated to hear this. Esther got to hear this, and her uncle by the name of Mordecai came to see her and advised her of what the situation was and said, "You do know, of course, that you are virtually the only person who may be able to do something about this. Because he loves you dearly, because he thinks you're wonderful. He doesn't know you're a Jewess, but if you were to go to him and suggest that this isn't a good idea, he may well listen to you." Well, she didn't want to go at first. In fact, she was most reticent about going because she said, even as the queen, I can't just walk in to the king's presence. He can have me put to death for doing that. And so she began arguing more and more with Mordecai. And eventually he said this to her, and this is the verse I want us to ponder on for a few moments. Esther chapter 4, verse 15. Who knows whether you have not attained royalty for such a time as this? Mordecai said, perhaps you've come to the kingdom just for this purpose. Maybe this is God's timing for his people, and you are the one chosen to sort it out. It was possible for him to add in brackets, of course, that she would also be put to death once he found out she was a Jewess, if all the Jews had to be killed and destroyed. But that wasn't the point he wanted to make. He was a very godly man. She was a very godly woman. And he said, have you not thought that you won this beauty contest? You became the queen of a foreign heathen nation, totally unexpectedly. Xerxes or Ahasuerus chose you. Who knows whether that was not God's timing in this matter? Well, of course, Mordecai was basically saying, listen, young lady, it is God's timing. You need to go and sort this out. And you need to do it now. So she did. She dressed up most beautifully, put on all the necessary perfumes that the ladies do, and he welcomed her into his presence. As she walked in, he extended his scepter to her so that she could touch it, and that was a sign that she was welcome, and she was allowed to make the appeal on behalf of the people. It's a fascinating story, and do take out a little bit of time. It's quite short, easy reading to find out how eventually he made it possible for the Jews to defend themselves so that in fact no Jews were killed at all. And the man who hatched this evil plan, Haman, himself ended up on the gallows. So it's a really feel-good story with good winning out in the end. But what strikes me about this is Mordecai's comment. You have been put where you are by God. And I just want us to think about that for a moment. Do you believe that? Do you believe that God has brought you to LAPU for a purpose? Do you believe that the degree that you are choosing to do has a purpose for your future and, even more importantly, for the future of other people? You may never be called, as Esther was, to save an entire nation, which she succeeded in doing by the grace of God. But I want us to just ponder on the fact that if God is sovereign, and he is, if he's in control of all things, and he is, if you are a believer, he's in control of your life, he certainly is, then will you now believe that nothing is an accident? That you are where you are because God is working out his purposes for you. You may never have had a voice from heaven or some celestial fax arriving on your computer, and of course I'm joking, but you know what I mean. God just led you through circumstances in your own heart, in your own mind, in your own conscience, to be where you are now. And if you are his child, he's going to continue to do that because God has a plan for us. And it's a plan to prosper us, not to harm us. It's a plan to make sure that we are always where we need to be. But, and it's but in capital letters, we are where we need to be, not primarily for ourselves. Yes, God blesses us. Yes, God provides for us. Yes, He deals with matters that concern us so that we have all that we need. He's promised us that. But if we're part of His kingdom, you see, it's always much bigger than that. You have been brought to the kingdom, God's kingdom, for such a time as this. I have in my study this little phrase, and it's been mounted, as you will see, so that I can never miss it, and I've copied it onto my computer as well. Do it now. We shall pass through this world only once. Any good that we can do, let us do it now, for we shall not pass this way again. God has plans for you, but you've got to offer your mind, your lips, your hands, your feet, to work out that plan for the good of the kingdom. And I just want to challenge you, as I was challenged again as I prepared this for today. What's God asking me to do now? Not in 5 years' time, not in 10 years' time. Is there somebody that I need to go and speak to? Is there somebody I need to encourage? Is there a poor person I need to uplift, give them something to help them, especially with the Christmas season just around the corner? Are there ways in which I can be God's hands and feet now? Who knows whether you have not attained to be in God's kingdom as a royal child of God for such a time as this? Please think about that and see how you can put some hands and feet and practical things to that, as Esther had to do very successfully way back then. May God help us all to take this seriously. Let me pray. Lord, thank you that you know us, you have chosen us, you have directed us, you put us where you want us to be, but then all you want from us is obedience. You want us to offer ourselves as living sacrifices to you, as Paul put it, so that we can be where you want us to be, we can do what you want us to do, and we can say what you want us to say. May we take seriously the challenge to do it now, and think of how we can do something today that will lift somebody else up and further the cause of your kingdom. For Jesus' sake. Amen. Amen, and God bless you.